Hey guys, went to this PD on Thursday last week about screencasts, so thought I'd give it a go given that I'm going to be off for the next 3 weeks. All quiet in the Miller house at the moment. Both kids, I think, are asleep, so fingers crossed it stays that way. Anyway, remember that last lesson we talked about employee expectations, job security. Just where this falls into, or why it's relevant, is it's part of the key knowledge. And that's the key term there, job security under employee expectations. So, it's really topical at the moment with what's going on at Ford and the closure or the pending closure of the Ford factories in 2016. And we have focused on Henry Fuller a fair bit, who was interviewed heavily on Channel 9. So job security basically, is relevant at the moment because of, every week it seems like in the news there's cutbacks, automation, downsizing, increased competition, et cetera, et cetera. So that's a big factor at the moment, and it's a real talking point in the news. Why is it so relevant? Look, job insecurity can cause significant stress and manifest itself physically, headaches, stomach upsets, etc., etc. And long-term can lead to heart disease and high blood pressure. With it, what you get, and this is why it's so important to HR and HR managers, is with job security, you basically get a supportive workplace culture where everyone is committed, puts in over and above what sort of the minimum. Without it, lots of feelings of mistrust, loyalty are not there, and the threat that you might be laid off or this might be your last day of work, etc., is really problematic. So that was where we're at. Now today we're going to look at change direction a little bit and look now at motivation. So today, in particular, we're going to look at 3 motivational theories, and today we're going to look at Maslow. They've devoted a whole chapter to Maslow in the textbook, and to Herzberg and Locke, they've put them in one chapter together. So the VCAA tell us this: key principles of Maslow's, Herzberg's, and Locke's theories of motivation. So obviously we'll focus on just Maslow. Always on the exam, so you'll either have to talk about Maslow, Herzberg, or Locke, or all 3 or 2 of them. Give an ironclad promise that that's going to be the case. Okay, so look, motivation is one of those terms that's really hard to define. What actually is it? And people can sort of give you examples of motivated people or people who look motivated, but it's hard to actually pin down exactly what motivation is. So that was the way I was going to start this class, was to look at, what is our definition of motivation. But we'll move on from there and go straight to the textbook. So definitely one of the most important functions of HR, because basically motivated employees will be more productive, and that's the job of HR. So that's why it's so important. Remember, people are a huge factor in productivity. So by definition, or the textbook says anyway, motivation is what drives a person to apply individual effort over a sustainable period of time. And I suppose if you think about, motivated students, if you're a motivated student, it's that thing that drives you to apply that effort, okay? And for some of you guys have applied it over a long, long period of time. Some of you guys are going over to university after this as well, and, Year 12 was only but 1 year and what might be another 3, 4, 5 years. So, motivation is a key factor there. It'll wax and wane over the years, your motivation, but ultimately, if it stays steady, you're well on the way to completing your VCE then. So what motivates? Well, you've got this sort of rewards punishment type system, also known as the carrot or the stick. And that's where this donkey comes in. I think it's an analogy there where either you can lead the donkey forward by dangling a carrot in front of it, or you can get it to go forward by giving it a bit of a whack with the stick. So the analogy basically translates quite well to the workplace or even to the school environment. Whereas if you are good in the workplace, you're a successful worker, using this rewards punishment system will mean that they dangle a carrot at you. And the carrot in this case will be better pay. So if you're good, we'll give you a pay rise. Or better working conditions, more holidays maybe, a nice corner office, as I've said there. All of those things might be something that is a carrot. The stick can also be used, not literally, obviously, but what they can do is if a staff member is naughty, you can reprimand that staff member. You can demote that staff member, and we can see Mr. K. Rudd on the backbench there, or demoted to the backbench after his leadership challenge, or failed. Well, not failed, but it didn't even eventuate. You can ultimately dismiss the person if it's just not working out. But the thing is, does that actually work? And what we know, and we've said this a million times in class, is that you to motivate someone, you can't just pay them more. It doesn't work. There's more to it than that. So being a HR manager, you need to know what are some of these other factors that will motivate your employees. What else can you use other than just saying, if you're good guys, we'll pay you more? So that's what we're going to explore, and that's what Maslow really gets into. There he is down the bottom there. He's no longer with us, died in 1970. And this theory came out ages ago, and it's funny that technology and all that sort of stuff, but ultimately Maslow has sort of stayed consistent over the years. He was a psychologist, and basically he said all people have needs to be satisfied, and they will work towards satisfying those needs. And it makes sense. We all have needs, and we all operate or work towards making sure that those are met. And these needs, which are what we require, can be arranged according to importance. So some of those needs that we look to be satisfied or get satisfied are more important than others. He talks about it as Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So basically, he starts down here and moves up the hierarchy one after another. And what we're going to do now is we're going to go through each of these different needs give a little bit of an example of how it works. Maslow also said that to move to a second part of the hierarchy, what you need to fulfill is the lower needs. So if you want to move to this part here, safety and security needs, you need to take care of the physiological needs, food, shelter, clothing. So we'll get into that a little bit later on. Oops, I went back a slide. Okay, here we go. So the first one's physiological needs, and basically these are basic human needs. So the book talks about food, shelter, clothing. An example in the workplace will be basically that we need to get paid satisfactorily to allow us to survive. That's ultimately what we need. And if we go back to the hierarchy here, of course that makes sense that we're not interested in safety and security needs or physical and emotional needs if ultimately we've got no home or I'm not getting paid enough to actually rent a house, that I'm on the streets. So it makes sense. So here's this guy, will work for food. This guy here's got a good way to make a buck, tell me off for $2. And this guy, I mean, you can see the competition's fierce in the homeless industry for a little bit of money here. This guy says, wife has been kidnapped, I'm short 98 cents for ransom. So at least they're doing something more than just asking for your loose change. They're having to think about how they can get it. So once you've met your physiological needs, you can then go on to consider your safety and security needs. These are physical and emotional needs. Some of them might be safe working conditions, job security. And again, you've got to remember that you're not going to be able to move up the hierarchy to anything like this if you're worried that you're going to lose your job at this point here, or if you might die at work that day, or what you do is so dangerous that this is definitely where you're just going to stay. You're not going to be able to move up the hierarchy. This is according to Maslow anyway. That's what he reckons. Okay, so given that you've taken care of your safety and security needs, and these guys certainly aren't doing that, you can see a guy operating on an air conditioning unit while being held onto by one mate here and another mate here, although I don't know, this guy doesn't seem to be doing much. And if this was your job, really, again, it's why you can't move to the higher level of the hierarchy. Social needs. So third, after you've taken care of the safety and security needs, you're interested in social needs. So this is love. We all want to be part of something, relationship, family, workplace, etc., etc., affection, sense of belonging. We need all of these things. Human beings, we crave it. So they're really, really important. Teamwork is a way that we get this sort of stuff at work. So working in teams is fun. That's why we talk about empowerment and total quality management and stuff like that. Quality circles. Working in teams is what makes some jobs bearable. It's fun. You have a laugh. You try to outdo each other. All of that sort of stuff. It's so important to be involved in decision making. So we want to be, as human beings, part of or feel like we have a say. We want this supportive management as well. So if we get all of these things, then again, Maslow thinks that we can move to the next part in the hierarchy. That's esteem. So once we've got our love, affection, sense of belonging, we feel like we are part of the place. We feel like we can contribute, that management listens to us, that we can move to this point here. Respect and sense of accomplishment. Okay, so basically that involves having some responsibility. I mean, a lot of people say they don't want responsibility, but jobs that don't have it often get boring or are unchallenging. Promotion is really, really important. Finding yourself out of your comfort zone means that you work hard to actually prove yourself to your colleagues and to your bosses. And working hard, again, it might not sound like it's fun, but if you've been promoted and you're working on something difficult, you watch and see how much time people are willing to put into it. It's amazing to see. And as fickle as we are and say that it's not about us and we don't want to get recognition, it's so important that people, even though they say they don't want it, they do. I've said I don't want it, and I know that when I do get a little bit of recognition, I'm really quite chuffed about it. We want people to notice if we've done something well, and we want to be told that. It's really important. I mean, even as a teacher, I get the occasional email or the occasional comment from a parent that I'm doing a good job, and it is fantastic to hear that sort of stuff. And I suppose it's the reason why after, completing 3 years of uni or 4 years of uni, we go out, we buy these fancy caps and the gowns and all that sort of stuff and go for the big, graduation ceremony. Because what is it? It's not a lot, but it's recognition of the fact that, we've busted our chops for 3, 4, 5 years, however long your degree takes to get there, to complete something hard. I did it. I got into the gown and I was quite proud of it. Reserve parking for Employee of the Month. That's one of the big ones there is, those classic Employee of the Month signs that go up in companies. You don't really see them here in Australia. I think it's more an American thing, but I don't know. I don't know whether I'd be too happy with my face up on Employee of the Month. But if it got me a good parking spot at work, maybe I'd consider it. So ultimately, Maslow thinks that once we've got all 4 of those other things in the hierarchy, that we get to this point of self-actualization, fulfillment, personal growth, and development. These are creative, interesting jobs. Google, classic example, they interview thousands upon thousands of people for these jobs, and it's interesting, and it's a crazy environment to work in, apparently. This is another workplace here, with all the different signs and colours. People have got different colour shirts on. look, that can all be just window dressing if the company doesn't embrace a lot of other things. But it's just one way of saying that workers kind of can be fun. Um, so every workplace needs these opportunities for advancement. If you have got to a point in your job where you know that that's all you're going to get, or that's the most or the furthest you can get, of course you're not going to be motivated, because this is your lot in life. And if you're looking ahead for the next 20 years that that's what you're going to do, then it can be a hard ask. To feel fulfilled, to realize one's potential. So, and that term's bandied around in sport and everything like that, that they're not living up to their potential. But this is what self-actualization is about realizing your potential and achieving. It's a fantastic feeling. You guys have either had it or will get it in life, and trust me, it's just one of those moments that it just makes work worthwhile. Again, you sort of do this for so much of your life that if you do get the chance to live up to your potential, it's brilliant. So Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I mean, that's great. Go back to it there, but how does that actually help in terms of management? So let's go back down to this last slide here. Organisations need to consider the hierarchy of needs, because they need to create workplaces that attempt to satisfy all the needs of an employee. Okay, so basically that employee needs to get paid satisfactorily. He needs a safe work environment. That you can't just offer opportunities for promotion in a workplace that doesn't pay well, because it just doesn't work. Organisations that attempt to motivate workers through pay rises or job security would only be satisfying lower order needs. So basically, if you're only considering these two here, the physiological and safety and security needs, then you're going to have a really unmotivated employee, because all of this stuff is the stuff that motivates. This is the real big stuff here. But again, like I was saying, you can't just pay employees satisfactorily. I mean, you can have a job, a menial job that pays brilliantly, $50 an hour, $100 an hour, whatever is a good amount, I don't know. But if there's no chance for advancing, or there's no recognition up here, none of these things, then again, what you've got is a really unmotivated employee. So Maslow basically says that every one of these things needs to be taken in consideration by management. Otherwise, you are not going to have a motivated employee, and you're not going to have a productive employee, and that's an issue for an organisation. So again, employees would not be fully motivated. They could become, or would become, despondent. Despondent, like going to work is just like a daily grind, and it's awful. And occasionally that employee can even be a troublemaker. And I reckon troublemaking is a sign that employee is just bored or unchallenged. That's why they're making or causing trouble. And it could be as much as just spreading rumours or just whinging. But it could be to the extent of, I mean, you'd hope not, but, full-scale espionage almost. Oh, that's being a conspiracy theorist. But, anyway, I mean, it's just not an ideal situation, obviously. So that's why it's so relevant to HR. Look, you've got to make sure your team's motivated. And one way to do that is to consider looking at Maslow and his hierarchy of needs, to sort of consider what it is, or how do we actually get to our employees? How do we actually motivate them? There are some criticisms of Maslow. There's little research done into the need categories. So, how did he come up with them? Or the hierarchical nature. Is that the way it actually goes? Does it go from the first to the second? Is that exactly the movement through the hierarchy? And whether it's an oversimplified view of the link between motivation, behaviour and performance. What we know is that if you're looking to motivate, there isn't one way that's going to work. It's just complex. So again, I think that people are looking for that magic bullet, the way to motivate their team, and you're never going to find it. You're never going to find that one way. But it's about reading your people and knowing what's going to make that particular person tick. That's the art of management. That's the real trick of being a good manager is being able to read people. So Maslow is just a way of allowing you to get some idea of what motivates and using that on your employees. And that's it. So next lesson, we'll look at Hertzberg and Locke. So the fun will continue.